The energy on set was incredible. I didn't actually work with any stuntmen on the set.
We would love to. We just need the leads. So anybody out there, if you've got any leads for us, you can email us, you can call us.
On March 12, 2025, major news outlets simultaneously reported a shocking development. Mike Wolfe, the prominent face of the reality television series American Pickers, had been sentenced to life imprisonment. The charges were straight out of a high-stakes thriller: transnational artifact smuggling, involvement in evidence tied to the death of a renowned historian, and manipulating the antique auction market worth tens of millions. To millions of viewers, Mike Wolfe had always embodied the image of a heritage enthusiast, traveling across America to rediscover objects steeped in history. But during a 46-day trial, a different portrait emerged: a cold, calculating man with covert ties to antiquities trafficking rings in the Middle East and Europe. The story began on June 17, 2023, when police in Bloomington, Indiana, responded to a neighbor's report of a strange odor coming from the basement of Professor Harold Clemens's house. Clemens, a retired historian who once taught at the University of Chicago and specialized in Civil War artifacts, was found deceased. He was lying on his back, his right hand clutching a silver pocket watch engraved with a faint but readable inscription, RK 1887 for honor not glory. Initially, it seemed like a natural death of an elderly man living alone. But the watch in his hand told a different story. Just a week later, the Savannah National Museum issued a leaked internal memo revealing the watch had gone missing from their Battlefield Heritage Collection in 2019 during an unexplained storage transfer, an incident never made public to avoid scandal. Now, the same watch had resurfaced in the hands of a corpse. The discovery ignited a firestorm online. An anonymous Reddit user, GearGhost82, posted in the antique hoarding subreddit, "I swear I saw this exact watch in an unaired episode of American Pickers when Mike visited a farm in Kentucky. It was in his palm, and he even said, 'This watch tells stories.'" Within 48 hours, dozens more came forward claiming they'd seen the same item on the show or in a since-deleted 2021 YouTube clip. Others said they saw the watch displayed at Mike Wolfe's antique archaeology shop in Nashville. In July 2023, the FBI quietly launched an investigation, working with the International Antiquities Trafficking Task Force. The operation, codenamed Rust Rail, aimed to determine whether Mike Wolfe was involved in illegal interstate and international artifact trading. One major break came from a leaked 14-minute unreleased History Channel video showing Wolfe negotiating the purchase of several military pocket watches in a Kentucky warehouse. When he said, "I know this piece went through the hands of an officer. It definitely has historical value. I won't ask where you got it," suspicions deepened. Digging further, investigators discovered that Wolfe's connection to Professor Clemens wasn't entirely non-existent. In 2017, Clemens had briefly appeared at a televised symposium on object history and made a cryptic comment: "Some artifacts should never be for sale. They carry pain no amount of money can buy." More chilling was an email recovered from Clemens's computer sent just 3 days before his death. He wrote to a friend, "I believe I've uncovered a chain of illicit transactions originating from a well-known television figure. I'm debating whether to alert the federal authorities." Though no one was prosecuted for his death and no visible signs of assault were found, the forensic report did reveal a contusion on the back of Clemens's head, possibly from a fall or an impact before losing consciousness. The case took a dark turn, and Wolfe was officially placed under federal surveillance. From that point, the small silver pocket watch became the key that unraveled an entire antiquing empire. Under Operation Rust Rail, the FBI began reviewing every episode of American Pickers and demanded internal records from the History Channel and the show's production team. They found something troubling. Between 2020 and 2023, more than 40 items acquired by Wolfe and his team never made it to air. Some were documented with basic receipts, but there was no record of their destination. Among them was the fateful watch found in Clemens's hand. With no direct way to approach Wolfe, investigators focused on one of his backstage assistants, Craig Salinas, a driver and primary transport handler for the production. During a 6-hour surveillance session in southern Missouri, Salinas was recorded driving a van marked Antique Archaeology to an abandoned warehouse not listed in any official filming schedule. That location would soon reveal the tangled web Wolfe had spun, one buried in basements, warehouses, and perhaps the darkest corners of the antique trade itself. To assist the operation discreetly, local police posed as a building safety inspection crew and entered the warehouse in Missouri. Inside, they discovered a series of sealed wooden crates containing 18th to 19th century artifacts, including at least 3 items identified by the FBI as stolen from a museum in Georgia. The investigation took a major turn when authorities obtained search warrants for 2 private storage facilities registered under a company called Time Vault Logistics LLC, a shell corporation in which Mike Wolfe held shares through 3 layers of financial intermediaries. At the first warehouse in Ohio, agents uncovered a trove of undocumented antiques, including Civil War-era revolvers, torn handwritten manuscripts, and a nearly 1-meter-tall Egyptian deity statue secured in a shockproof container. According to an internal report, the statue matched one stolen from Egypt's Luxor Museum in 2011. Following the money trail, investigators found that Mike Wolfe owned at least 5 small companies incorporated in offshore tax havens like Malta and the Cayman Islands. Between 2016 and 2023, approximately $4.7 million USD had been moved through these companies via antique sales, none of which were verified by certified appraisers or legitimate auction houses. Of particular concern was a $150,000 wire transfer made to a Swiss bank account under Wolfe's name, originating from an individual linked to the underground antique market in Aleppo, Syria, a known conduit for looted artifacts during wartime. What stunned investigators most was how methodically Mike Wolfe had built the operation. No official show staff were ever involved in transporting items after filming. Instead, all goods were handed off to third parties through contracts signed via virtual fax apps and paid for in cash or cryptocurrency. The logistics coordinator was a man of Eastern European descent whose real identity remains unknown, saved in Mike's messages only as Memon. In November 2023, the FBI intensified the operation by infiltrating a New Mexico antique shop previously visited by Wolfe. An undercover agent met with Mike on the night of December 3rd. In an audio recording later leaked during the trial, Mike can be heard saying, "Not every item should be on TV. Some things are meant for those who truly understand their value, not the audience." Soon after, the FBI executed emergency search warrants at 3 locations linked to antique archaeology, including a secret warehouse in North Nashville. There, they found a coded document labeled the List 17, which included artifact names, black market symbols, prices, and transaction dates. Nearby, investigators also found Mike's personal notebook with a cryptic line penciled inside, "They will never understand. This is about heritage, not money." But no matter how noble the sentiment, heritage cannot justify illegal activity. With piles of evidence, including undocumented items, secret accounts, and concealed communications, Mike Wolfe was officially named the prime suspect in what became the most significant scandal in American reality television history. The trial of Mike Wolfe began on January 9, 2025, in Chicago under tight security. Reporters packed the courthouse, while fans outside held signs reading, "Free Mike," still convinced of his innocence. But what unfolded inside the courtroom left most observers in stunned silence. The 39-page federal indictment listed 6 charges: illegal transportation of antiquities, international trafficking of cultural heritage, tax evasion, obstruction of justice, money laundering, and concealing evidence in a suspicious death. Prosecutors opened with damning video footage, never aired on television, showing Mike Wolfe exchanging cash for artifacts in shadowy, undocumented locations. One clip featured Mike handing money to a Syrian man in a Detroit garage in return for a small box containing unverified Roman coins. Prosecutors described the show as a cover for a criminal enterprise, a commercial model built on illegality disguised as televised Americana. One of the most powerful moments came when Mike's former co-host Frank Fritz took the stand. Frank, who had stepped away from the show years earlier, testified, "We once promised to only collect what was legal. But over time, Mike became obsessed with finding things no one else had. He said, to keep the show alive, we have to dig deeper, literally and figuratively." Frank recounted a 2021 incident where a wartime diary purchased in Arkansas vanished, only to resurface weeks later on the black market for 15 times the price. The defense offered few rebuttals to the evidence. Instead, they tried to paint Mike as a man overwhelmed by the system, arguing that all transactions were handled by his logistics team and that Mike was merely a passionate collector. They claimed the suspicious funds were from legal private sales and that the Swiss account was a legitimate savings vehicle. Mike remained silent for most of the trial. On day 31, when asked if he wanted to address the jury, he stood and said, "I never saw myself as a criminal. I just wanted to save what others had thrown away. If that makes me guilty, I accept it." The statement made national headlines and deeply divided public opinion. On sentencing day, the judge took just 4 minutes to read the verdict. Citing overwhelming evidence, the sophistication of the network, and the cultural damage caused, the court sentenced Mike Wolfe to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. All ownership and intellectual rights related to American Pickers and antique archaeology were terminated. In the gallery, an elderly man, longtime fan of the show, broke down in tears. Social media pages dedicated to Mike quickly vanished or shifted into tribute mode. But even as the gavel fell, the biggest question remained: if Mike was the ringleader, then who were the silent power brokers behind the scenes? The fallout was swift and massive. 3 days after sentencing, the History Channel officially canceled American Pickers, removing all episodes from streaming platforms. The once thriving YouTube channel quietly deleted its content, and the antique archaeology website went blank except for a single line, temporarily suspended. A name once woven into the fabric of American pop culture vanished almost overnight, as if it had never existed. The FBI sealed both showroom locations in Iowa and Tennessee, spaces Mike had once described as sacred for lovers of the past. The secret Nashville warehouse was handed over to the Heritage Management Bureau, which spent nearly a month cataloging its contents. Many items bore falsified documentation and unclear provenance. Among them were religious relics traced to conflict zones like Iraq, Syria, and Yemen, including a marble carving believed to have once adorned an Ottoman royal tomb looted in 2003. The antique auction world was shaken, with the market entering an immediate freeze. Major auction houses like Sotheby's and Christie's issued public statements indicating they were reviewing all transactions indirectly linked to Mike Wolfe. Several high-profile deals, some worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, were immediately canceled. Meanwhile, private collectors began to worry that the prized items they had once acquired through Mike might now be subject to seizure. Outside the courtroom, the public grew increasingly divided. Loyal fans insisted that Mike had become a scapegoat, a convenient target within a much larger, long-standing system operating in the shadows of the art, commerce, and political worlds. On platforms like X and Reddit, users dissected the case, highlighting inconsistencies and proposing that Mike may have uncovered information someone powerful didn't want revealed. One detail that especially fueled this debate was the infamous List 17, a document discovered in Mike's secret warehouse. Beyond its encoded transactions and cryptic artifact symbols, the final page featured a strange handwritten line, Q7R3VTI. Theories erupted online, with some claiming it referenced a covert organization involved in elite artifact trafficking, possibly connected to high-ranking religious institutions. A particularly viral theory claimed VATIC stood for Vatican Intel Corps, a group never officially acknowledged. Though unverified, the presence of this mysterious code turned the entire case into something more profound, transcending a man and his television show. Adding to the intrigue was a document released by the forensic investigation team, Mike Wolfe's personal notebook. Among routine notes like Episode 312 Cut Old Truck Scene and Follow-up with Leopard Skin Collection Holder, one folded page stood out. It contained a solitary sentence, "Not all past should be brought to light." The page had been carefully wedged between unrelated notes, almost as if Mike wanted it to be found, by accident or design. Meanwhile, at the Terre Haute federal prison where Mike is currently serving a life sentence, authorities have denied all media access. A former associate, speaking anonymously, revealed that Mike has become completely isolated. He eats alone, walks alone, makes no special requests. It's as if he had anticipated this outcome long ago and has quietly accepted it. In March 2025, during a closed-door hearing, FBI representatives confirmed that other individuals linked to the case remain under active surveillance. One name mentioned unofficially was a former History Channel program director, the person who oversaw cut episodes. No one knows whether certain footage was deleted, manipulated, or intentionally buried. To fully understand the scope of this collapse, one must go back to the beginning, before the fame, the million-dollar brand, and the show's opening credits, to the roots of Mike Wolfe himself. Born in 1964 in Joliet, Illinois, Mike grew up in a poor, working-class family, raised by a single mother alongside 2 siblings. His childhood was modest and rough, sustained by hand-me-downs and the kindness of neighbors. Even as a boy, Mike was drawn to the discarded. While his peers collected baseball cards, Mike dug through dumps and scrapyards, salvaging broken radios and rusted bikes, anything with gears or history. His favorite saying was, "If it's worthless to everyone else, it's even more worth keeping." By the time American Pickers debuted in 2010, Mike was already in his 40s, yet his enthusiasm was unmistakably childlike. The show became a phenomenon, and with his partner Frank Fritz, Mike scoured the backroads of America in search of forgotten treasures. He was beloved not just for his expertise, but for the kindness and curiosity he showed sellers. But as the show's popularity surged, so did the pressure to keep it fresh. Each episode needed to outdo the last. The stakes grew, and so did Mike's ambitions. Over time, he began crossing into spaces no collector should tread: evidence lockers, black markets, even conflict zones. What began as preservation gradually blurred into obsession. Someone who worked closely with Mike in the show's early years said it best: he didn't just collect objects, he collected control over memory. At some point, Mike crossed a line. No longer content with salvaging forgotten trinkets, he began chasing the forbidden, the things people were afraid to own. In his mind, perhaps, he believed he was preserving culture and saving pieces of history from oblivion. But passion, however noble, is not a defense in the eyes of the law. Now, Mike Wolfe is inmate #42719D54. His name, once synonymous with American heritage, has been wiped from public platforms. And yet, a lingering question remains. Was Mike Wolfe a man who exploited the past for profit, or was he the last person bold enough to preserve it, no matter the consequences? From a man who once traveled the country collecting memories, to a national television icon, and finally, a convicted felon sentenced to life in prison, Mike's story serves as a sobering reminder. The line between passion and wrongdoing is often thinner than we think. And the truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds its way back to the light. So what do you think? Was Mike Wolfe a victim of a broken system, or someone who went too far chasing what should have been left in the past? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to stay updated with our latest releases.